Have you heard about the saying, you have to slow down to speed up? But what does that mean exactly for us busy healthcare leaders who always have something that we want to implement for our team, for our patients, and really for our family? How is that going to apply to us? Let's find out in today's episode. Hello, everyone. We know you are here because you want to figure out how do you support yourself, support your team, and support the patients in your practice. And where do we start? It's always with us. And many of you know my story. I was the one who's a little busy, did everything, right? And then until I hit the freaking wall. So let's not get to that point for any of you. And that's why I have Dr. Maya here with us. We got connected as professional speakers a few years back and just really truly connected from both our past stories, what we do, and to support the medical community. People like you who already have a great slew of success behind you, but how do you get to the next level? So today we're talking about how do you slow down in order to speed up. Thanks, Dr. Mayer, for being here.
Oh, thank you, Sabrina. It's awesome to be here. It's good to see you again. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, of course. I know I could not ever give you the amazing introductions as you deserve. So tell us a little bit about you, your career journey, and how it led to what are you doing right now for the executives and business leaders.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a neurosurgeon, a neuroscientist. I actually grew up knowing I wanted to go into medicine. And then in college, I was fixated on neurosurgery. I said, I've got to study the brain because we're never going to learn everything there is to know about the brain. I'm never going to get bored. And I saw a really cool brain surgery when I was shadowing a doctor. And I said, well, okay, these two reasons, this is what I have to do. So did all the things, right? Went to medical school, went to residency, did not one, but two clinical fellowships, because why not? And, I was recently speaking to somebody about the number of hours and years even put into studying for, preparing for, training for, and then practicing medicine. So I practiced neurosurgery at a couple different hospitals. Most recently was at the Cleveland Clinic, where I spent 5 years, actually the last 5 years of my clinical practice. It was so interesting to me because, we're driven, right, Sabrina? And so we had, these 5-year goals, 10-year goals, all of this. And I had my entire life mapped out as far as what I wanted to do and what level I wanted to reach. And, and when I was at the Cleveland Clinic, this has been probably 5 years ago now before I left clinical practice. And, I was, it was the number 2 hospital in the United States. I was doing research. I was PI of my own lab. I was teaching, I was associate professor at the university and you know what? I was burned out doing everything that I thought I wanted to do, but I had never learned the keys that are so important to keep you from getting into a state of burnout. So I retired from clinical practice. It happened to coincide with me adopting my 2 beautiful children that I have now, which gave me some more time with them. But I really wasn't 100% sure of what I wanted to do. I opened up a medical consulting company, did some online office visits essentially for a while, did some insurance work, some other things. But here's what I found. I started studying. I said, all right, why did I get so burned out? Why did I get so burned out that I had to actually leave practice And this is ridiculous, right? Because there's not an overabundance of neurosurgeons in the world, just like there's not an overabundance of doctors in the world right now, especially since COVID, right? And I said, how can I help people to not get to this point? So I started doing all this research on the brain and even what burnout looks like from a brain science standpoint. And I actually have developed a program to help physicians and executives in high stress, high burnout fields to be able to thrive in their current business. Because most of the time, you actually don't have to shift out of medicine, you don't have to shift out of your career, but you do have to take care of yourself. And that's not something they teach you in medical school or residency. In fact, I would say, and you know this from going to school too, that it's the opposite, really, and then they throw at you when they recognize, they begin to recognize some signs of burnout. Oh, go have a coaching session, go do a yoga session on Saturday morning. That was my personal favorite. Like that was going to fix what was going on inside my brain and my body. And as we talk today, I'll be able to share some of the science of even what happens in the brain in burnout and why it takes so long to recognize it, and why by the time you recognize burnout, it's often at a point where, a weekend off, even a month off is probably not going to fix the problem.
Yeah, those are so right on the target. We all felt that way. And your path, it was, I think both of our paths, it was like in the OR, couldn't do anything. And then we're like, oh my God, this is not life, right? This is not sustainable. How can people do it just because we've done it for so many years in that way? It doesn't mean we have to. It doesn't mean that's acceptable. I believe AMA put out a survey and prediction that 122,000 physicians lost by 2023. And then we have even higher nursing shortage as well on top of that by the nursing societies. So it's a crazy amount of, if we all leave medicine, who's going to stay to take care of the rest of us and our family when things go haywire? And so that's so crucial for you and me, and especially my mission is keep private practice in practice. And we don't have to feel like just wait for that right moment, for that vacation, and to XYZ, right? If you wait for so long, even you can take an extended vacation, then most people still doing some work when they're on vacation. They can't shut their mind completely down or feel the sense of responsibility always hanging over their head. And when they come back, guess what? They feel like they have to double up in a few days when they just came back just to keep up, right? Whatever they had missed. And then it's actually trying to stress their body and their mind, and their quality of work actually would go down. So it's such an important topic for all of us. You don't even have to see yourself as burned before doing something. We needed to be more proactive in thinking about our health and our mind, because we know, and you also know, whenever you don't feel well, how are you treating other people? Are you as nice, patient, and open to their ideas as you would when you're completely like joyful, actually in a good state of mind yourself, or full of energy, right? So most people is middle of the day. They love to chat, they engage, right? But if you're not feeling well, it doesn't matter what time of the day, what day of the week, it won't work for us. So that's why it's such a crucial moment for all of us to think we have to up-level ourselves in order to then up-level our teams, our patients. Mayo, you mentioned now in your journey of moving away, right? Both of us kind of are doing that, is that clinical medicine is great, still do a little bit of cardiac surgery, but we found this additional passion. What do you say that people who start to recognize there are more things in life than just work, and actually feel more possible, right? Like the potential of what else is out there is greater, and then they are actually doing better in the work they're already been doing.
Yeah, I love so much of what you said resonates, but yeah, I think that this is a good place to really jump off of right now, because I stayed in neurosurgery probably a little bit longer than I really wanted to stay in neurosurgery, because I didn't believe that I could do anything else. Okay. I pigeonholed myself into neurosurgery, and I listened to other people say, yeah, but you spent 17 years between college, medical school, residency, fellowships, all of this, and then 10 years in practice. What are you going to do after you give that up? You can't do anything else. And I believed this for so long. And identity is such a key piece that helps you to tap into your passion, your joy, and even give you energy to be able to sustain what you're doing, and actually more than sustain, but thrive. So I'll tell you what, and this is what I work with my clients a lot on now, is helping them understand the amazing facets of who they are and what they're capable of. Not necessarily so they're going to jump and go do something else, right? But when you understand that you're not boxed in, okay, you're not boxed into your job, you're not boxed in financially, that's a whole nother discussion, right? With the golden handcuffs, a lot of practices put on you, especially hospital-based practices, right? But when you understand you have freedom, man, then you have a choice. And the power of choice in the brain is amazing. The power of choice, when we feel like we can make a choice, then we set up an electrical chemical environment that actually helps us tap into those energy stores that we already have within us, and begin to embrace aspects of ourselves that we previously did not give ourselves permission to do. You mentioned going off on vacation and coming back and working twice as hard. I can't tell you, Sabrina, the number of times I would come back from vacation, and that first day back, I would say, I wish I had never gone on vacation. I said this, it was ridiculous. It was like that entire week or 10 days or however long I happened to have off was just erased. All the restoration was erased, right? But it's a mindset issue. And I think that it is so important to understand the many facets of who you are, what your strengths are, and then to even reconnect with some of the passions that we have. I've noticed recently, I have a number of colleagues, I still keep up with my colleagues in neurosurgery, of course, and their solution, they start job hopping, right? And I'm sure you've seen this too with a lot of folks. And folks, listen, if you're job hopping or you're even looking for a new practice, different job, that's actually a sign of burnout. You may not recognize it. The grass is not, certainly there are some situations that are not ideal. Let me be clear about that. But a lot of time, the solution is not switching practices, switching cities, right? Switching hospital systems. It's actually changing some things about yourself that are actually amazing when you change them. And rest, and entering into rest is such a powerful one. So.
Right. And it's that allowing yourself to say, I deserve that rest. I deserve to go on vacation without the burden. And I think that's also one of the big things I work with practice owners about, is that you have to allow yourself and get to the point. This is not, I can just take off 4 weeks without any planning, right? That's not efficient. And then everything I teach about is creating systems for yourself and for your team, so you can do what? Go on that 4 weeks vacation and be okay, and your team functions well, your patient continue to come back, and then everything is actually growing without you doing the nitty-gritty. But we have to first do the allowing part, acceptance that we deserve to have that break. And so the ongoing weeks and planning to get yourself to that point, the right people that you have to be on your team to delegate. Now, it's not the same as decide. People mistaking delegate and deciding for what people needed to do a lot. And then when you come back, how do you roll out that slowly for yourself? Right? Like the simple thing is you need to have at least 1 day between coming back from vacation and start working again. And just to get yourself back into the rhythm and not feeling like, I'm still jet lagged, or, my body feel like I should be waking up at 9 o'clock in the morning, not 6 o'clock, right? Like that's very different. And then we even know by study, even just that 1 hour difference of daylight saving has shown to reduce productivity in many fields across the board, and specifically in healthcare, medical error goes up. Think about just 1 hour of time differences can can make that happen. So we needed to be more graceful and more conscious about what we're doing. And that also, I wanted to tap more into that neuroscience side of like, what is our brain doing? From all the providers listen out there, we're like geeks out, right? We geek out on the medical things and the processing. So what's actually happening up there?
Yeah, so here's what's interesting. So as I was studying a lot about this, there's really three components of what's happening in the brain. There are electrical changes in the frequencies that your brain cells are talking to each other, right? There are chemical changes, and then there's actually structural changes. A lot of people don't recognize this. With burnout, you can actually get structural changes in the brain, but one of the first thing that happens are those electrical changes. So, your brain cells talk to each other very slow frequencies when you're sleeping. So that's delta, right? And then you've got theta, which is kind of your dream state or meditation state. You've got your alpha state, which is, awake, but we're really kind of visioning our future, right? And our dreams and our hopes and that sort of thing. And then there's beta, that you are actually designed to be in for very short periods of time to solve a problem. It's a very fast frequency of the brain. And then there's gamma, that's our learning frequency. So all those years in medical school and doing the research, that's got the gamma activity. But here's what happens in burnout. We get stuck in this beta state. I call it beta brain. If you actually get a functional MRI of the brain or either a QEEG of the brain, you can actually see the beta activity is everywhere. And what that does is, number one, it actually begins to start a cascade of events such that your brain chemicals, your dopamine, your serotonin, your calming brain chemicals, right? Your dopamine is your productivity brain chemical. Oxytocin is actually new idea creation, okay, and building new brain pathways. Those all get essentially shut down because of some cortisol release that happens from that consistent beta state, okay? So you're in this constant frequency where you feel like you just have to run, and you can't stop. This is why when you try to go on vacation, right, if you haven't instituted a practice of rest on a routine basis, why you can't even shut your brain off. It used to take me 4 to 5 days, Sabrina, before I could finally like breathe, sitting out by the pool or on the beach right on vacation, because I had to get my brain out of this beta state. And what happens, so then it begins to affect those chemicals. And that's usually at the time that people begin to maybe notice, right? So they may notice you're more depressed or you're more anxious or you're more withdrawn. Okay, those are some of the things. But if it's not caught then, and as physicians, as medical providers, we say, oh, we're tough. We can do it. We got through training. We got through school. So we're just going to toughen it up, right? And get through. Exact wrong thing to do, because then here's what happens. It begins to change the structure of your brain, okay? It begins to affect your hippocampus, your memory center, your amygdala, which is emotional regulation. This is why people in burnout, right, may fly off the handle, get very angry at sometimes, even out of proportion to things, right? As you mentioned earlier, people that are in pain, whether it's physical or emotional pain, we're not our best selves, right? But here's something very fascinating. It actually begins to affect the medial prefrontal cortex, which has two very important functions, all right? It is your goal-directed behaviors. So this is the part of your brain that makes you accomplish those tasks on your list, like seeing your patients, getting your charts done. Oh boy, I could even talk about that one for me for a while, right? And the other thing it's part of your identity center, who you are created to be. When we get into burnout, we start to just blend in. We lose our individuality, which is actually horrible for body, mind, and soul, right? And so it has very, very devastating effects when we get to these phases of burnouts. But the other thing is, the changes occur in your brain long before you ever see physical manifestation of the signs and symptoms. Just like if you have certain types of diseases, someone could have a type of cancer and it could grow significantly before they ever present with signs and symptoms. Burnout is very much like that. Often it gets to at least the chemical changes, but often the structural changes before anyone recognizes that it's a significant problem. And, a day of yoga is not going to fix that at that point.
Exactly. And that's why in my training of positive psychology, we talk so much on how to retrain our brain. So we call that mental fitness training. And that's something we have to do on a daily basis. And it doesn't have to be, oh my goodness, I need to set 20 minutes for my medication, right? And or I have to go to yoga this day, and you're trying to beat the clock to get out of the clinic or get out the next meeting that you book way too many for that day just to make it. And then you feel bad of not making those sessions. So we needed to be intentional about training our brain on a daily basis, even 2 minutes, because what you have done and intentionally to remodel your brain, we can reverse that, right? Retrain your brain to make these synaptic connections and then to make your myelin to work better, right? In your favor instead of against you. And that's why it's so crucial to actually even know what are those simple tasks are. And one of the big goals for both myself and Dr. Mayo, because we complement each other so much, she helps with both the physical body, the thinking, and then how do you get yourself into that high level state versus I help you into the performance side, the productivity side. So then you can be able to value your time, value the people's time around you, and be able to create better impact and adapt to be more open to those. So one of the big things we love to do is to, just like any of you guys, we need to go give ourselves retreats, right? We need to give ourselves the grace of saying, I deserve some rest. And now this rest is very intentional rest of where we need to be and how we're allowing ourselves to be supported by a small group of people who are just like you, who are there intentionally to support, to unplug, and to regroup. And so we can strategize what you can do going forward. So Dr. Mayo, would you like to explore on that idea of what are our concept and then some things that we were thinking to do and why people even should join us?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, here's the thing, and it seems counterintuitive because you think if you're not being productive enough that you need to be, more of that beta frequency, but that's actually the worst thing for you. We actually need to slow down our brain. And this is actually a principle not only in brain science and neuroscience, but also in quantum physics. As you slow down, you actually can tap into healing. You tap into inner wisdom that you have that gives you powerful strategies to have those creative solutions you were even talking about, Sabrina, the way you help individuals with their practice and making it more productive. You're not going to get to that when your brain's in the beta state. So the retreat, first of all, it gets you away from the scenario. It gets you away from the pager, away from the cell phones, first of all, and then helps you reconnect with that genius that's actually within you, right? Through, we have a number of different programs that we offer through that retreat, but a lot of it, to an outside observer, it could look like, oh, that's a vacation, but it's not. It's very intentional, just like you said, because each one of you has a very specific pattern in your brain to help you unlock those theta rhythms, right? To activate your parasympathetic nervous system. If you just go, use your medical training and say, oh, well, I know these things activate this and that may not be for you. That's what I've found. I customize for each and every person. And I know you do this too, Sabrina. I actually have a brain frequency mastery template that I customize for each and every person to help them get their brain into that theta frequency, connect with the alpha vision frequency for their life, to get the right flow of dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and it's different for each and every person. And it cannot really be done very efficiently without really doing that in a very intimate setting like a retreat. So that is one of the purposes for our retreat, is one, just get you out of that stress state, first of all, and then help you tap into, you have incredible power locked in your brain that can actually help you quantum leap yourself to the next level. But the only way to access it is by slowing down in order to be able to make that jump.
Exactly. And we know we can always be busy, we can always be productive, but that productivity is that really giving you the ROI that you deserve, the effectiveness, the short amount of time that you wanted to get it done, or it's just that you're busy all day and you didn't even know what happened to your day by the time you're done with it. And that intentionality, guess what? One of the study even show on average, people use 13 productivity tools in a day. That's crazy. You can't constantly adapting other tools and things to work for you. We have to figure out work for you the best instead of trying to always seeking for external validation tools and resources. It always comes down to us. If we don't know how to function better, no matter what we adapt, it won't sustain the growth. It will always going to be a trial error issue, or perhaps you haven't tried it long enough for the result to be shown. You already jump into something else. So we appreciate you guys being here, serving your communities, creating jobs for people, right? As healthcare entrepreneurs or any leaders, if you're having a hiring role, you have a significant purpose in society, both from a patient care standpoint and being a good boss, good leader, and a good person who see the vision that other people cannot see. So let's put you into the next level of how you can perform better, how you can feel better, how you can better control your practice, your life, and also your future. So I appreciate Dr. Mayo for being here. Thank you guys for joining us. And we know we can continue this conversation for so long. And
Yes.
Until next time.
Thank you.
Are you an established owner or executive who has a thriving and successful healthcare practice? We want to hear your story live on the show. Become one of our guest speakers so you can inspire other practitioners like us, arrive as an authority in your field, and connect with thousands of like-minded healthcare leaders who need to hear what you have to say. Apply to be a featured guest speaker on an episode on The Provider's Edge by visiting SabrinaRunbeck.com/interviews.